Last season, 5-1. Last season against Spurs, 6-1. PSG, 4-1. I am nervous about this game on Sunday. Those scorelines tell you why. Is this a really good time to play Newcastle? No. They've just beaten Paris Saint-Germain 4-1 in the Champions League on a night in Newcastle that no one's going to forget anytime soon up there. Am I nervous? Yeah. But I'm also excited. Because if we put out the filthiest low block known to humanity against Newcastle, we can snatch all 3 points. Trust me, I might have method in my madness and reason to have my nerves. Up next for West Ham is a home game against Newcastle United. Newcastle travels down south to face West Ham at the London Stadium. Both teams come off the back of major European successes. Newcastle remains unbeaten in its Champions League group, a competition that it has entered for the first time in 20 years, while West Ham has just broken the record for the longest unbeaten run by a British team in Europe. It's broken a 55-year record in the process. Newcastle and West Ham are teams that have always had a lot in common and very amicable fan bases. Both have very massive followings up and down the country. Both have had to deal with the burden of bad ownership in the past. And both teams have struggled. Both teams have been down in the Championship, got promoted again, and made something for themselves in the Premier League. Now that times are very different, with Newcastle's huge takeover meaning they had more money and a chance to rebuild bigger, and while West Ham has appointed Tim Steidten and used him to make positive reinforcements in the light of Declan Rice's departure. These are two teams that have a lot of respect for each other, and it makes the game very exciting. I'm obviously on the Premier League monthly reviews with Baz and Pete. Been on John Sinclair's channel before, so I know Newcastle fans quite well. Respectable club, respectable fan base, great city. As is London too. I am going to say this in a non-offensive way. When Newcastle lost 3 games in a row at the start of this season, I was starting to think that they were a bit reminiscent of us last season. Last season, we played a different style of football, and that's what cost us in a lot of the results. It wasn't something this team was used to. I was starting to think it was Newcastle playing a different kind of football. Maybe not. Because they ended up making up and in a way repenting for those 3 straight losses by winning 3 in a row. One of those games, by the way, was the 8-0 battering at Sheffield United. And there's going to be people back in South Yorkshire, where I'm from, saying, oh, bloody James is mentioning that again. Mate, listen, Sheffield United fans, okay, you're going to hear about that a hell of a lot. You think Southampton fans didn't have to deal with the 9-0? Do you think Ipswich fans didn't have to deal with the 9-0 back in 1995? Yeah, get used to hearing it. Is what it is. And also in the Champions League, Newcastle put in that defensive masterclass at the San Siro, going 0-0 against AC Milan. And then an Mbappe-led PSG attack couldn't break down Dan Burn and Fabian Schär. Mbappe getting bodied by a 31-year-old local lad who scored in that game, as did Longstaff, a Geordie local as well. That is the stuff dreams is made of. I'm happy for Newcastle, man. I watched that game. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was funny PSG just couldn't hack it. But this Newcastle team is a threat. It is a very big threat. Eddie Howe's in there for the long term. He's a fantastic manager. Let's see what he can do and when he brings his boys down to London. There are a lot to watch out for. Mainly players like Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson. Maybe Callum Wilson's not playing Sunday though. I heard somewhere he wouldn't be playing in the game. But Alexander Isak is that aerial, tall striker threat. I think it was Martin from the Mancunian Way went on Baz's channel and said something along the lines of, you can't go saying that Isak's up there with Haaland because he's only just had the one season, but so did Haaland. And Isaac still looks very quality. Wilson and Antonio banter each other on a podcast, and I wish that Antonio would stop because he goes on there and says too much. Callum Wilson, I think he's a bit of a, dickhead, basically. But who is not a dickhead is the next few players. Miguel Almiron, really class player who scores belters with his left foot. Bruno Guimaraes is a great midfielder as well. Harvey Barnes is a target of West Ham over the summer, but he went to Newcastle. Did we lose out? Yeah, but I suppose everything worked out in the end. As I look at my notes, Sandro Tonali was the big summer signing from Milan, the most expensive Italian player of all time. He can play as a defensive mid or a centre mid. In defence, Sven Botman's very solid. Nick Pope is an excellent goalkeeper. Clean sheet maestro. The Newcastle team itself has always had a lot of good players in it, to be honest. And Howe's now utilising what he's got. It's a side that prefers to drop deeper and keep the ball more and then use that to its advantage. Worked with some of the players in the team. Guimaraes can play deeper. Jolinton can play deeper. I don't think Jolinton's playing, though. Other players can play in wing positions or even play at number 10s. Almiron was more used to playing as a 10 when he was with Atlanta. He now plays as a winger and looks better in that position. The team overall is dangerous. There are going to be some changes made because of suspensions and injuries, but still, it's a good team. Newcastle's so bloody good these days, man. Harrison Ashby, you moved to Newcastle United from West Ham United to think that you would do better. You're now on loan in the Championship, mate. Could have had a chance to be the starting right back and have a long-term future at West Ham. But then you went to Newcastle and thought, I'll have a long-term future there. Nah. Javier Manquillo gets chosen before you. Tino Livramento will be chosen before you. Kieran Trippier is starting, obviously. Ashby, mate. You done messed up. I'm going to say a 2-2 draw because, you know why? I think there's going to be a fair few goals in this. We'll break them down in ways, but then we can get them with our dirty counter-attack. So, I think a 2-2 draw will make it exciting and entertaining. And though I am nervous, my nerves have turned into somewhat of excitement. And I now can't wait for this game. Roll on the 6 a.m. wake-up time and then going back to bed for a few hours.